Well, looks like we're live, Gideon. I'm just super excited to have this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know that we've shared a YouTube link that is still being circulated on how you can access this live discussion and leave your comment. We'll start off. My apologies for starting off a little bit late, but it's a weekend, so trying to mobilize and settle down on a weekend is a little bit hard. But I'm excited, Gideon, to have you here. I know the other speakers will join us in a jiffy. Um, but let's kick it off. We're talking about the global south leading the future of mental health, and ideally that's a bold move. Most of health conversations have been led by the global north, and it always looks like the global south is being pulled along so that we're not left behind. But we're trying to change that script, especially when it comes to mental health, because this is something that's close to home. We understand it, and because African continent is very cultural and religious, it brings in a different side of how we've been tackling mental health for quite some time. So, good afternoon, all. Good morning. It depends on where we're joining. Please leave a comment on the YouTube link. We would want to engage. We'll see the live comments coming in. But for today's discussion, it's rooted on a powerful question. Why are young adults in parts of the global south reporting stronger mental well-being despite facing greater socioeconomic challenges? This is more than a data point. It's a challenge to long-held assumptions about where resilience comes from. And we know the African continent. We're usually associated with resilience. We're strong. So there's something we've been doing right, and we want to see what is that? Can we retain that? Is there something we need to change? And how do we ensure that these conversations are global south routed? Our discussion today will explore three important areas: of course, community and belonging, spirituality and meaning, digital habits and lifestyle, you name it. These are things that affect the mental health one way or another of an individual. And we want to also hear about lived experiences. So leave that comment and we'll definitely dive into the conversation and look at that too. So we will reflect on what these factors reveal about resilience and what they mean for public health, mental health, policy, and of course, everyday life. We cannot talk about mental health and avoid everyday life discussion. So I'm excited to start off this conversation. My name is Ms. Lizzie Otai. We have a special guest that's going to join us later on, but we also have Miss Fidelia. My apologies, Fidelia had to join in last minute because she knows how the health systems work, and we can't talk about mental health and tackling that without mental health system experts in the call. We also have Gideon. We'll get to know more about what they do. They'll introduce themselves later on. But to kick us off, let's start off with one particular brief question. What is this one thing this conversation gets right about the global south? I mean, we're talking about making it more global south, more African centered. What is that one thing that the global north still misunderstands about mental health being in our context? This is the African lived experience context. So Gideon, maybe over to you. What do you think we're getting right, and what do you think everybody else is getting wrong about us and mental health? I'll pause a bit. It looks like I've lost both of the speakers, but we're live. We're talking about mental health, and we're already seeing also Massimo on the chat. Um, Thank you, Massimo, for sharing your position. So Massimo is the founder and CEO of the East African community. Fidelia, I don't know whether you can hear me. We lost you for a bit. Gideon, we lost you for a bit, but don't worry. Technicalities. This is what we're talking about. We're in the digital age. We're trying to make sure that we're not left behind. So we do expect such kind of hiccups. Now, maybe let's go back to the discussions. Gideon, we're talking about something that we're doing right as the global south, but then there's something that they're getting wrong when it comes to how we're dealing with mental health. What would be that thing from your own perspective?
That you're asking me, right?
Um, yes, Gideon.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I think I'll start off by saying it's a very, very wonderful conversation we are having right here, the global mind health in 2025. I should equally start off by saying that when the name came about, or the theme rather, there was a little bit of confusion with 2025 and 2026, and I had to explain to my audience that the perspective we are looking at is a particular data that was put together in the year 2025, which is the global mind health in 2025. And the global south itself is leading the future of mental well-being through the Seize the Light Foundation. And I do appreciate the opportunity to represent Nigeria in this conversation. So one thing that is particular, especially with this, is that when conversations about mental health happen globally, Africa is often discussed as a place with problems. And it's not much of a, how do I put it now? It's not much of a concern in itself, but it's now dependent on how we own the narrative, or how we carry out the narrative when it comes to mental health. Because Africa has a large base of youths that are going through one thing or the other. And from my perspective, we'll be looking at what belonging means in the African communities, what many young people, rather, people who suffer certain things silently. Would have to look at the family, would have to look at parenting, would have to look at the immediate environment, because we cannot talk about depression, anxiety, stress, and all of these big names that we know without bringing it or drawing it down to the very beginning where it comes from. And family is the smallest unit of life. And that's why it is very, very critical that whenever the conversation of mental health comes into being, be it from an individual perspective, be it from a social perspective, continental perspective, we still have to bring it home to the family. What is a family made of? Either the father, the mother, the brothers or sisters, as the case may be. Some people grew up with their extended family. You will hear a lot of Africans who say they grew up with their grandma. Some will say they grew up with their grandpa. Some will say they grew up with their foster parents. And all of the characteristics that they experience or enjoy formed who they are, formed their mental well-being, their physical well-being, their psychological well-being, and it goes a whole long way to define what mental health in itself
I
comes to be for a particular person.
I
So we would
completely, yeah,
also
I completely
perhaps explore things like, um, yes.
yeah. Gideon,
So we could also
ladies
explore
and
things
gentlemen,
like
Gideon is,
purpose,
yeah, Gideon is
identity, faith,
very
and the rest.
excited. So Gideon, I know I can already feel you're already getting into the conversation, and I've not even introduced who you are. So, but I'm super excited about this. What you bring out is that
Very
unit,
well.
family
Very well.
unit,
Very well.
and that family unit. I like the way you bring it out. Some of us were raised by our parents, biological. Some of us were raised by uncles. Some of us were raised by community. Some of us were raised by our grandparents. And I like the fact that we've gotten that right. The unit, the family unit, has to be in that conversation amidst when we're talking about the things we've gotten right in the global south. Fidelia, we're talking about health systems strengthening from your side. What is that one thing you feel when it comes to mental health we've gotten right, but the global north is also getting something wrong when they define mental health from the African context?
Um, Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you again for. It's an honor to always be a speaker and advance discussions into the mental health and the broader aspect of healthcare and health system in itself. Uh, when you see what we have gotten right is creating awareness. Awareness about mental health and how it affects our day-to-day life. In Africa, it's been demystified, and it's now not an isolated issue that is frowned upon. Conversations are happening. I'm actually very glad that men are even taking up these spaces more and speaking about the issues that they're centered on, that they face when it comes to mental health. But the other thing is also you see governments now taking up spaces and owning up and saying, oh yes, we need to actually invest in this. I think what the global north is not seeing, and if you're to look at health systems from the perspective of social determinants of health, which you look at the social side, you look at the economics side, so you're looking at people's livelihoods. Are they able to mitigate and adapt? So I will narrow down all these conversations down to the climate health discussions during the COP discussions in that usually happen every year, and seeing how do we effectively support these communities, by extension the governments, and also regionally at continental wide, so that you can build the muscle of resilience and move it in to be a norm within our community, so that mitigation and adaptation is not a foreign concept that cannot be easily managed even at the lowest level. And at the lowest level means like at the primary healthcare level. Yeah.
That is so true. I mean, we're getting some things right. We've been getting this for quite a long time now. I mean, family for Africans is something that's very strong, coming up and being raised in a community. That is something we know. There's support systems that have already been in existence. I like the fact that we are more aware now. We're creating awareness about mental health and stuff. So I'll take a step back, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies. I get super excited and forget protocol on what we're going to do. But today's discussion, we're just going to focus on the global south. We want to lead the way. We're leading the way. We've always been leading the way, but we don't want anybody to be in that space where they don't understand what we mean when we're talking about mental health within the African context. So I have amazing speakers. Some of them will be joining us halfway as we go. But I do have Gideon right now. You've met him, very passionate. What you don't know is that Gideon is actually a mental health advocate and has some legal backing, and is going to introduce himself in a few. But also, you've had about how governments and healthcare systems strengthening are crucial when we're talking about mental health. You've also mentioned, which is something I really appreciate, Fidelia, when we're talking about climate change, mental health is something that also comes up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm seeing a lot of comments on the chat, so thank you very much for joining. Gideon, let me take a step back. Please introduce yourself. Let us know about who you are, what you do, but then, as you tackle that, we need to understand, as a mental health advocate, how do you see community and belonging? And you brought that up in your introduction, shaping emotional resilience in African setting, especially among the youth. And you brought it out so clearly that we have a big number, and this number is going to double, by the way, by 2050. So we're going to have more youth, and that means we need to tackle anything mental health related for the youth before then. So over to you. Maybe introduce yourself and then let us know about that.
Thank you so much, Lizzie, once again. And it's a great privilege and pleasure to have everyone listening to us this afternoon or morning or evening, and wherever part of the world you are listening from. My name is Gideon Disu. I'm a legal practitioner. I often like to be called Pagidi, because that is one of the things which formed up my identity. Over the course of my existence, if I'll put it that way, I have been involved in a whole lot of things, including legal practice and much more in itself, mental health advocacy. And when conversations about mental health happen globally, like I did say earlier on, Africa is always discussed as a place with problems to solve. But today, I would like to look at it from a very, very different perspective. And I will appreciate that we have a rapt attention for the few minutes I'm going to say these things. Thank you so much, each and everyone that has been dropping your comments. And let's keep those comments coming. Because while we may not always have the strongest healthcare systems or the most therapists per capita or largest mental health budgets, we possess something that's increasingly rare in today's world, and that is community. Community, belonging, a shared identity of who we are the human connection. And these may be some of the most powerful mental health resources available anywhere in the world. I know this of a fact because my journey into the mental health space did not just begin as me being a lawyer. I must categorically say that so many years ago, precisely 11 years ago, as a young university student, I experienced chronic depression when I had 7 carryover courses in the final year of my university as a Nigerian student. And like many young Africans, I was surrounded by people, yet felt completely alone. I was expected to be strong. I was expected to cope. I was expected to keep moving. But inside, I was struggling deeply. And this is something that I'm very, very sure resonates with any African anywhere in the world. And what frightened me most was not even the pain in itself. It was the silence around the pain. You know, one thing that I've come to understand is that nobody seems to know how to talk about emotional suffering. Nobody seems to know how to discuss things like hopelessness, suicidal ideation, stress, anxiety. Everyone just keeps these things to themselves, inclusive of the fear, the shame, and the stigma. And the way out for me was writing. You've come across that word in different forms. Some call it journaling, some call it different thing, but I call it writing, expressions. What started as a personal survivor slowly became public advocacy, because what I was doing was writing out my thoughts, writing out my feelings, writing out my pain, writing out my passion, all of the several things that I would have desired to walk up to someone and talk about, but I was unable to, because of several things that you as an individual too can resonate with yourself as what is particularly causing this pain. Maybe the fear of how you'll be listened to, the fear of how you'll be understood, the fear of what the reception would be like. So those writings eventually evolved into a bigger project. And I should digress a little by saying that when it comes to mental health, survival is the very instinct that keeps one going. Survival, the word survival is that thing between someone choosing or electing to die by suicide, someone attempting suicide, and the person who survives suicide. This is a 1 hour 30 minutes conversation, and the global statistics has it that every 16 seconds someone dies by suicide. So what that painfully means is that before the end of this conversation, at least a certain number of people would have died by suicide. Not necessarily because they want to or we allow them to, but that is the reality of the world we are living in. So for me, I decided to choose writing as a way of saving myself before death in itself comes. And that project which I did, I titled it Dearest Suicide. It's a 5-book series, which if time permits or as the case may be, I am open to sharing it to every single person to enjoy. Because for so many people, Dearest Suicide was simply just a series of writing. But for me, it was a conversation Africa desperately needed to hear. A conversation between pain and hope, a conversation between despair and purpose. I mean, think about it. How would you hear that a lawyer who is naturally expected to be an educated person is feeling suicidal? And that stigma hurts every single person, not just in the legal perspective, every single profession, you be it a doctor, a therapist. I mean, it's very interesting that even a therapist actually needs therapy. So between life and temptation, there is this thing to want to give up. And it reminded readers that behind every statistics is a person who has a life, a person who is dreaming, a family who wants to take care of you, maybe your father, your mother, your grandma, or even someone, maybe you even lose you even lose a member of a family. So that story deserved another chapter. And what surprised me was not really the number of people who read this book. It was the number of people who reached out to me privately via my DM and email. Students, young professionals, parents, all of them had one thing in common. I mean, I didn't know these people, but they all had one thing in common when they shared their thoughts. And what they said was that I thought I was the only one. Now, imagine it very, very closely. Africa has the largest number of youths in the world, and one person story can be replicated in a whole number of individuals. But the dynamics or the myth about it is that every person thinks they are the only one going through something. And that's why we are having this conversation. That's why we are all here having this conversation, because the more we speak, the more we give people the opportunity to hear, be listened, be heard, be understood, and to have this feeling of inclusion, this feeling of belonging, this feeling of community that we are talking about. And that, for me, was the realization that sat in the heart of what I do at Pagide Expressions. Because in 2019, I founded Pagide Expressions. I'm saying this, like I said, it's a lived experience, and I strongly believe that several people listening to this would have something, a similitude or something similar to their own story, and it's going to serve as an encouragement to them. So I started Pagide Expressions as a movement which was committed to, creating safe spaces for difficult people. And not just after, what we were trying to do was that to give people a sense of belonging and inclusion, not after the crisis, not after the tragedy, not after you've attempted suicide and you are now feeling shame, but before it even happens, so that someone can hear exactly how you feel. Hey, it is okay to be suicidal. It is okay to be depressed. It's okay to be anxious, but what is not okay might now be the step that you will take. And the fact that it is not okay doesn't mean that you should be shamed. You should be allowed to share your story, because it is from telling your story that you, as an individual, first get your healing. So the healing doesn't even come when you see a therapist. Healing comes from just hearing someone talk, hearing someone understand what you are going through, and several other things. So I may want to say or share a whole lot of other things, but because of
Yeah,
the time
yeah.
constraint, I will just
Do not
limit it to the
worry.
fact that the
Do not
the
worry. We
family
will circle
is
back.
the
We will circle back to you. Yes, carry on.
oh
Maybe
that,
you can
that,
summarize. Yes.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Lovely. I mean, I don't understand why, but I do resonate with everything you're saying. And there's some key words. Every time you're speaking, I was hearing expectations, struggles, resilience, advocacy, the fear, the survival, the saving myself. There are negatives and positives, but these two have to coexist. And I like the fact that this is a lived experience. You're a lawyer, you went through this. And we've seen doctors committing suicide, and these are the people who we're supposed to go and listen to. We've heard of psychiatrists killing themselves, we've heard of spouses killing each other. In Kenya, we're going through this phase where we have school kids back home right now. They're supposed to be studying in school, but because some touched the school, there was another case of kids found with weapons in school. So there's a lot of things going on that really, if you sit down and listen to it, this is a mental health issue. Somebody needs to talk. They need an outlet. This outlet looks like touching the school so that they can go home. But I appreciate the fact that we have our another speaker on the call. And the comments are coming in. Thank you so much for joining. We've seen people from Tanzania, from Uganda, from South Africa. Thank you so much for joining. Memory, we're excited to have you here. And Memory, we just kicked off the discussions already. And of course, you're a public health expert. And what I like about you when we were having a discussion to get to know more about each other is you brought out this aspect of money and mental health. And ladies and gentlemen, a funny thing, not funny, surprising and interesting to me when I was meeting Memory for the first time was the fact that she works with farmers. She works with individuals and organizations that are within the livelihood. You know, farmers are the ones that, you know, make sure we have that food um, on the table. They make sure that we have nutritious food. They're the ones that are providing the food that we eat. But this is it. I appreciated the way you brought a different set of theme that not a lot of people talk about. When you think about mental health, I don't think I've had somebody associate it with farmers, but I know everyone associates mental health with money. And yesterday you mentioned something about money and mental health, the individualistic lens. Maybe you can introduce yourself and then let us know more about that discussion. And what I like is I saw Memory also nod the whole time Gideon was talking. So you do resonate with what Gideon is saying. Memory, over to you. Maybe a
All
bit
right,
about
thank you so much.
yourself.
I do appreciate everyone. Yes. How are you, everyone? Thank you so much. I do appreciate everything that has been said. I am so happy. So, Memory from Zambia, like uh, everything has been explained about me. I do appreciate to be here. So, public health is something that has been so key to me, looking at what is happening around the world, around people, and especially if we narrow it down to our local communities in Africa. Me coming from an agricultural background, you will agree with me, those that are in agriculture, to say Africa is a lot about smallholder farmers who are our local people in our local communities. That's where we have a big population of people, and you will discover that people in those areas, they really are stuck into their mind because they don't know exactly what is their next step, what is their next food, what will happen next. Is it going to rain very well this season? Is it not going to rain? What will be our tomorrow be like? Especially where you find that even the agriculture system in Africa, if I narrow it down to Zambia agriculture system, especially the market system, especially in the agriculture sector, doesn't have a proper system where a farmer could predict what they have produced, how much they are going to get from there. So in that aspect, it brings a total mess in the mind of a farmer, which makes me to be very happy to be here where we are addressing the issue of our mental well-being in Africa and as a globe, especially to our local people. So mental health is something that has been so key to me. And personally, at my personal level, I am the advocate of my own mental health because I have discovered that even me as a person, I pass through a lot of challenges. There's a lot of things that I need to offload, to upload, to offload, to upload, because life is so dynamic. There are things that you cannot avoid that happens to you as a person. So when we look at now the public health with the aspect of a farmer, where farming is concerned, you will discover that farmers are really being stuck in the aspect of their produce, what they are producing, because at the end of it all, it is all about money. They need to make money and buy food. It talks about also nutrition. Whatsoever they are producing, is it very nutritious enough to keep their children and the community they are feeding to be very healthy? So you find that this whole dynamic, the value chain, it is really very, very broad. So in that aspect, though all those things come to play. So the key thing that I'll really talk about is the social determinant, which is the mindset. So for a farmer, their social determinant, it is their mindset. So once they produce their food, in their mind, what they think of, especially if we bring it down to Zambia, you'll find that here in Zambia, whatsoever the farmers are producing, they are selling to FRA. So to them, if they think about FRA, which is their buyer, are they buying on time? If they are not buying on time, then where will their income come from? So that brings a lot of trauma into their mind. There are others also who grow with the outgrower schemes, people who are buying food from them. So if this middleman who is buying food from them, they are not buying in time, it is also bringing all that confusion into their the lives of the farmer. So the other thing is the community. So to them, it is the community. So to a farmer, a community is their health system. Their community is their health system. You find that in their communities, that's where they interact, they relate. To them, they call it as a thought care. So their community is where they interact, share ideas, especially where women are concerned. You find that women form small groups called savings groups. So in those small groups called savings groups, that's where they interact and help to offload as they are saving money. Then the other aspect is where money to a farmer is a well-being, their well-being. So this comes in with insecurities, comes in with also distress. So those are about that. So now if I take it back now to where we look at the aspect of money in across individuals, you will find that people now fell in the lens of having these monies because of their failure to budget, their failure to articulate everything. And you find that a lot of people now find it very difficult to narrow down on how they are going to do their budget because of life dynamics. So in the nutshell, I would say that in all this, mental health is very key to every individual and to everyone across our lives. I think for now, let me just end there. I'll chip in as we are going forward. Thank you.
And thank you. I think ideally when we have mental health discussions, we tend to forget the obvious things. It's usually somebody would assume, oh, okay, this person doesn't have money. It's money problem. That's why they're going through this. But most of the time, it's not the case. But money is another crucial aspect that affects your mental state, your well-being. Literally, money kind of plays a big role. I forgot to mention, and I need to take it back a bit before we hear from Fidelia. Today's discussion is global mind health, right? And we're trying to grab this discussion by the horn fast and make it more global, more African centered, because we don't want anybody assuming that they understand what mental health means for the global south, just because it's on a global north platform and it's being discussed and money is being thrown back and forth. And I like what Fidelia you said. You brought out COP and you brought out climate change, but it's very surprising that they're still debating whether health and climate change are related, which is very, very crazy because mental health is a health issue. And clearly, Memory has just told us how it even affects the farmers themselves. Thank you so much to Seize the Life Foundation. They're the ones who are convening this particular discussion. We appreciate your support in collaboration with the East African Community Mental Health Network. And I've seen a couple of partners from EAC Mental Health Network on the call. The Youth Initiative Development Program, also other ones helping in collaboration with Zenith Global Health. And what I like is those four organizations trying to have this meeting has brought in a regional perspective, has brought in community, like the East African community aspect. It's brought in the youth, and that's why we have the Youth Initiative Development Program, but also brought in the aspect of human resources for health, which is one of the key issues that Zenith Global looks into. Fidelia, I'll bring you back in because when Memory was talking, I had a follow-up question, and I felt like this follow-up question might be ideal for you to look into. Now, because you're an expert when it comes to system health strengthening and healthcare in general. What would it look like for governments and public health institutions to take protective factors seriously in mental health planning? And I know Gideon brought this out. He's trying to address mental health before there's a suicide, before there's a casualty. What do you think from the public health perspective the governments need to take seriously when we're talking about mental health planning? Fidelia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thanks again to and also to everyone else who's been able to join this forum. My name is Fidelia Rose Mwambi. I'm a health systems and a public health expert. Um, my work cuts across the healthcare system, specifically looking into policy, strategy, and partnerships, and with quite the narrowed down focus for Africa. I say Africa because often than most, the global north tends to usually speak more about Africa than the Africans themselves. So I pride myself as being a health system strengthening and public health specialist in Africa. I will get to answer your question, Liz, but let me just set the tone from my purview. You see, mental health was always an underlying factor that was spoken in whispers, but now as time goes by, it's been noted to be the bedrock of every foundation, not just for the family, but for every human being who comprises to the family, and then the community and the country and the region and the continent itself. And it's been unfortunate that this shift is happening now. I wish it happened earlier on because the global south is now rewriting its narrative. It's now embracing innovation when it comes to healthcare, specifically for mental health. We have the Runner Up by University of Nairobi. We have people working in collaboration with diaspora, such as the Inclusive Speech Rights Initiative, and these are people who are seeking every time persistently to grow something out of our African soul, because Africa is ought to be leading in the mental health. We do have the largest population, complementing what Gideon has said, and we're also looking at the power of the youth and the young women. We are now we are the revolutionizers, if we are to say so. I'm Kenyan, proud to be very Kenyan, and I can say the youth have are powered with this energy where they're using digital advocacy and art to smash ancient taboos when it comes to mental health. These are some of the initiatives that we need to embrace in our different platforms so that we can be able to transform suffering in silence into healing out loud. And at the forefront are young women, young mothers who have young families, and most whom are still practicing agriculture. And they are stepping out as the grassroots leaders because they understand their networks. So they can launch the peer to peer networks where they can create safe spaces and prove that leadership is not just about sitting at the top, but about taking action from where you stand and understanding that Africa's success from embracing community and changing and spearheading change comes from the base of I am because we are, and that's the Ubuntu side of us. Healing happens in communities, circles, and not in isolation. Um, we can have a good look at Zimbabwe's friendship bench, where trained grandmothers deliver therapy on wooden park benches. I mean, it's such simple ideas that become a global blueprint. And working together with our professionals, we're able to make this a great asset for human connection, despite revolutionizing using the digital platforms. So our policymakers need to integrate mental health care directly into local clinics, and I can speak for the Kenyan space where the Ministry of Health, having the division of mental health, is working together with different partners such as Johnson and Johnson to as- to to capacity build community health workers who are also the human resources for health workforce to be able to provide this care at the family side unit. So compounding all these factors and seeing the efforts that are being done from the top notch down, it will be look I believe that it will come to a point where a citizen will visit a clinic, whether in Kenya or across East Africa and Africa itself, and mental support will be rightly available for them. So embedding mental care into youth and everyday primary healthcare services and programs is what will help build a resilient healthcare system that can withstand any crisis, especially from the community level, where every social determinant of health that's not limited to the socioeconomic and livelihoods, but also just to the day-to-day good health and well-being, which is the SDG 3, will be able to be um, strengthened, and its resilience will be an effect will be impacted over the years, and so many generations coming forward will be able to benefit from it. So to the youth, please keep on raising your voices. Your courage is your compass. To the medical professionals and our policy advocates, may we build our trust with the community despite science being the strongest. It is only the strongest aspect when it serves the people, and investing in all models needs investment in these models that are centered on mental health and advocating and creating awareness and having accessibility to mental health care means that budgets must match the rhetoric. So yes, indeed the future of global health is local, youthful, and collective, especially in the global south.
That
And
is, yes.
And to wrap it up with the conversation that you're speaking about the government and the public health sector, what protective factors are they coming up with? I can speak. I think right now most governments across Africa have come to realize that mental health is indeed costing the economy. It is indeed costing how the general population, not just on the blanket healthcare system, but also other aspects of the economic itself. It's affecting the productivity, it's affecting the family, it's affecting the society when we look at security. So all these compounding and indirect and direct factors have brought governments together to look at it from a multi-sectoral point of view. In Kenya, um, we do have we're currently rolling out research study to understand what how bad is it when you're speaking about mental health, and what is mental health, because how I define my mental health well-being and how another person defines it in a different region in Kenya, it will be totally different. um in the past, I mean, it's just been a month or two that I think in the past month Aga Khan together with Daystar University rolled out their findings, specifically targeting the higher education institutions, that's the universities, and they came to discuss with the students, coming to one-on-one. And I kid you not, like the conversations on the root causes as to why the mental health exists, they just don't speak about the school system, but they speak of an integrated system where it's the family, it's the home, it's the uncertainty, it's the it's I'm not sure if I'll be able to have the a meal the next day. I'm not sure if I'll be able to stay home. The strikes by the
There's a root
lecturers are
cause. Yeah.
affecting our
Mhm.
healthcare system. So those research-based findings are one of the key ways that the government and the public health sector, together with the private, with the pub, with the donors and also the funders, philanthropic
Mhm.
funders, and universities, have been able to work together to understand first the issue, to understand the core of the issue, then then they will be able to now come up with interventions that match the
True.
needs, so that they can be able to have effective protective measures, so that you just don't give protective measures, you give measures that are suitable for the particular cohort or age group or society that you're dealing with at that particular point. So that is the initial step, to which
Availability.
as a
Yeah.
public health researcher, it's very core, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it will pan out in the next couple of months, because I'm sure that's the
True.
bedrock of
True.
what they've done. So it's a solid foundation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Speedy, for that. Oh, that's quite intense information. And at least in Kenya, we have policies and these conversations are happening. I wrote a piece on generational gap and how Gen Zs don't know how to communicate with millennials. Millennials don't know how to communicate with their parents. There's a generational gap, and it all boils down to the fact that we're not having conversations. And I like the fact that definition of terms is something that's really kind of throws everything off discussions. How do you define your mental health? How do you say I have your mental health and well-being is intact? What does that mental health aspect even actually mean? And I know Gideon started with that at the beginning, and we need to create enough awareness so that we're on the same page. But I know we've been talking on a kind of generalized scientific systems sort of a discussion. And as I began the discussion in the beginning, we said we're taking it back to make it more Afrocentric. And we're looking at it from the African perspective and lenses. Let's take that conversation back home. Let's bring it back to where individuals can actually understand. We are super excited to be having the founder and president of the East African Community Mental Health Network, Masemo, also kind of giving his input. And we really do feel for DRC Congo going through the Ebola crisis right now. And you can imagine with the limited access to care, he's just left his chat there. DRC remains, when it comes to mental health, remains severely underfunded. And this is something that we can resonate with. I mean, note a lot of African countries have hit their Abuja declaration target of at least 15% of government budget, country budgets need to be redirected to health. So you can see if they can't reach at least 15%, getting money for mental health might be an afterthought. So let's take it back to the African setup. Let's talk about my well-being, my spirituality. We come from countries that are very spiritual and very religious, and we know these things do play a key role when we're addressing mental health. Pagidi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Pagidi, because I know you
Yes,
said
ma'am.
you're being called. Like, let's talk about religion and spirituality. Where do we draw the line? Um, I know we've used religion, we've used spirituality to take care of mental health issues because there was no other alternative. But when do we draw the line of saying maybe this needs a professional healthcare specialty? The spiritual and religion part will not take care of an individual. When do we identify? How do we even identify that we've got to that point?
Thank you so much for that question. I should start by saying that the Global South in itself has rich investments, rich natural investment, moral investments when it comes to mental health. And in my previous time speaking, I did emphasize the role family has to play and community has to play when it comes to mental health. And that's because Africa has the greatest strength when it comes to family and well-being. And people often know their neighbors, their extended families. All of these people are involved. And there is no way we will bring about these elements without talking about spirituality and religion. Not necessarily from the line of Africa being a religious continent, but because we cannot in exclusivity take away religion from the ecosystem of humanity. We cannot take away spirituality from the ecosystem of humanity. Spirituality is all inclusive. Be it you believe in God or you don't believe in God, it is still you being spiritual. And religion and spirituality play a significant role in many global South societies, be it Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, Zimbabwe. So whether you are a Christian or a Muslim, or you are someone just rooted in traditional beliefs, many people draw their strength from hope. That sense of belief that there is something or someone that is going to help them or save them from what they are going through. Because at the end of the day, everyone is looking for solution to what they are going through. So you can look for the solution. I love what Memory was talking about through the agricultural sector. We are trying to bring in nutrition, we're trying to bring in all of these things, but everyone is chasing money. So even when it comes to religion and spirituality, everyone is still chasing hope. So they're chasing identity. They're chasing this sense of resilience, this belief that no matter what happens, I still want to survive. I still want to live. I still want to do something. And they channel it to the spiritual side. So every weekday, most likely on Sundays, you find everyone between the hours of, let's say, 8 to 12. Every single person in Africa, one way or the other, goes to a particular church. If it's on Friday, they go to a particular mosque. And for other people who don't believe in God, they believe in something within them that is keeping them going. That is the spirituality. So while spirituality is not really a substitute for mental health care, because we will still, and I should add, yes, I just remembered, I should add that when it comes to spirituality, we have in certain ways demonized it. I won't bring it down to Africa itself. Let me just say generally, we have demonized it such that many people believe that when someone decides to die by suicide, the person is not going to heaven, the person is going to hell. To the extent that some people even believe that there is nothing like depression or anxiety, that it is a spiritual attack, or it is voodoo, or the magic, or one thing that is, you just have to, pray over, forgetting the side or the role mental health professionals have to play. To the extent that clergymen, pastors, imams now take the role of professional therapists by praying to people who they ought to give professional counseling to. So while spirituality is not a substitute for mental health care, it still has its meaningful place to play in the protective factor of the ecosystem of man, the ecosystem of an African being, and the ecosystem of what one has to do when we want to talk about mental health. So we cannot take away spirituality, we cannot take away religion, because one way or the other, that's what someone believes in, but it is interwoven with both religion, spirituality, and professional mental health. Thank you.
True. A memory. We're talking about religion, spirituality, and we're trying to draw that line, which is usually very difficult. For example, most of African countries will have a family issue. If it's not sorted within the family setup, the next best option is always to go to your religious leader, so to the church, to the mosque, and get religious guidance. And we've seen mental health within the community for quite a long time. It's been hard to identify because the minute you see somebody is a little bit off, so to speak, you'll say, "Oh, this person has been bewitched. Must be a family issue." We even go too far to say maybe the wealth they have in their family, it's because they sacrificed this particular individual. So the way that Gideon has put it, that religion plays a key part. What would be your insights around not substituting, the way Gideon has said, not substituting spirituality and religion with professional care? I don't know whether memory is. Oh, you're there. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. So maybe you can just ask me the question again. You
Yes. Yes.
asked, so that I can get
A
it
memory
clearly.
from your, and I appreciate the fact that you deal directly with communities, with farmers. From an African perspective, if you cannot sort an issue within the family setup, we always go to the religious leader. We go to the church, to the mosque. There's usually a system, a next step before we get to the professional medical care. From your own perspective, and just answering the same question that Gideon was tackling, when do we draw the line and identify and say, yes, it's time that we bring in the professional healthcare, despite trying to go through the family setup and going through religion. When do we draw that line? How do we identify? And with you dealing with communities, with the farmers themselves, and if they don't get the yield, if they don't get the profits, if it doesn't rain with climate change now, usually the mental state, the way you mentioned in your introduction, becomes a key issue. So from your end, when do we identify that this needs a professional healthcare and not an overnight prayer time in the church?
All right, thank you so much. That's a very interesting question. I think there's a lot of things that happens in people's mind and people's thoughts, especially where mental health is concerned. So there is a point where people would draw their lines depending on the circumstance at which it is at. So I think the quickest thing that individuals or people, especially in our Africa setup, we draw much or we trust much in our communities and our families where we come from. That's where our first solution goes in there. I'll just narrow it down. I don't know if I will divert a bit in answering this. I think the many problem comes in, or not problem, I'll say the issue is on how that a family or community, they have been raised up. So you talk about their thought process, or what their mind has been programmed. So for example, like my colleague was saying, the speaker who was here said something that is very cardinal. If a family was brought up in where, I'll take an example for myself. If I have got a problem, the moment what clicks into my mind is, oh, I need to pray about this problem for me to receive a solution. And that problem is like, I'm looking for a higher source, which is a spiritual source, for me, for this physical problem to be sorted out. So in that process, if I continue praying about it, then the answer is being delayed, then I'll start now consulting. Oh, I'm having this problem. How should I go about? By the time I'm making a decision to say, oh no, this problem, actually, it is not about a spiritual thing, or it's not about this, it's about me going to the hospital. And I'll take it back, like you earlier indicated, especially in the setup of farmers, you'll find that their also spirituality is different from those that are professionals. Their approach is where they'll go and look for, those that they are witch doctors, as others they call it traditional healers, others call them spiritual, depending on where you are coming from. They would go and consult from there. So it's all about the programming. How is their programming in their thoughts? What is really being taught to them as they were growing up for them to make decisions? You'll find that even professionals, people, for example, you were talking about, doctors. There are doctors who commit suicide. You find that there are doctors who are even smoking, drinking. They even know that what they are doing is really bad. But you find that there are things that are beyond what they are going through. So because of that, that's what causes people now to start delaying in making decision in where would this solution come from me to a professional. Do I need to go to the hospital for it to be handled? Do I need to go to church for them to pray over it? Or do I need just to pray alone for this solution to go over? I'll take another practical example that just happened recently. You find that as young people are growing, discovering themselves, you find that they start experiencing a lot of things and trying to test a lot of things. So there is this young boy who accidentally bumped into a group of people and starts smoking. So he starts smoking marijuana, and it causes his mind, to go insane. So when that thing happened at first, What clicked into that family was, no, our son has been bewitched, before they discover that, no, this is what he's doing behind their back, because they couldn't believe that their son could go, a young person could go as far as, smoking. And because of that, this same thing would make his mental, his mental process, and he becomes, mentally disturbed, and he goes out in the street, take off his clothes, speaking a lot of things, reaction to the body, because it was so intense. So people wouldn't, that family did not understand that that drug could take their child to that length. So what did they do? They started first going to, seeking for spiritual help by introducing the child to, pastors. After pastors prayed, they feel that, no, the pastor is not doing the right thing. They took now their child to the witch doctor. By the time they realized to say, no, 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 the problem is not about where we have been going. We need to take this child to the hospital. So he was taken to the hospital. There, that's when he was given the medication and neutralized everything that was running into his head until he became normal. So in my conclusion, I would say it's all about on how that community has been raised, information that has been, given to them. So sometimes it's the dissemination of information. I love about this platform where we have started now addressing real mental issues, because mental health or mental well-being, it's something that has been neglected, and people are dying, people are committing suicide. Even professionals, you find that in your workplace, yes, you are getting good monies and everything, maybe stress, you cannot sleep, you've got, targets to meet, you've got reports to write, you've got a family that needs your attention, you've got people that are offloading burdens to you, but you as a, a leader in the family or a leader in the community, you've got nowhere to outpour the things that you are, having in your head. As a result, accumulating stress as a result, you find that people, they feel that they are hopeless and they have got nowhere to go. So thank you so much.
Thank
Over
you,
to you.
Memory.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that cultural aspect. And as I mentioned, we're trying to make this African discussion. We're no longer talking about mental health on a global platform. We're trying to relate because we have solutions. There has been things that have been put in place that have been working, and we all agree that the first step is family. Family could be the reason why your mental health is not where it's supposed to be, but starting to speak, just ask for help. And we're talking about and thank you so much. I've seen a discussion that has picked up around the role of the faith leaders in also referring. They need to be capacitated so that they identify what is not demonic to what needs professional help. They need to understand that not all mental health means somebody has been possessed, and they need to know how to identify um, and how to pick out what level and who needs to be contacted, because a lot of families and a lot of us will always run to the family first, then to the spiritual healer before we start looking for alternatives. So we need to capacitate people. We're going to the last lap of this discussion, and I think I saw one of the speakers join in, Onesimus. I'm not too sure whether you're still there. And there's a good question running.
Yes,
How did
I'm here, Lizzie.
Lovely, lovely. I cannot see you. I think the Lewa is here finally, because you know what, I was saving the best for last, Onesimus. We're talking about mental health, but we're looking at it from the Afrocentric, the African, the global South lenses. And let's be a bit open around digital spaces. And we've seen cyberbullying, we've seen harassment online. We have, and you can attest to this, social media influencers are also being bullied, and they're trying to share information. So let's talk about the digital space where we are right now. Despite being in the global south, we're catching up with where other developed countries are. So Onesimus, the webinar kind of brings in this digital habits and lifestyle aspects from a public health lens, How do digital exposure, social media use, changing lifestyle affect mental health well being in our communities today? And to be honest, social media is playing a huge part in our lives nowadays. I find myself the first thing when I wake up in the morning, and it's a habit I need to kick, is grab my phone and see what's going on. I don't watch the TV nowadays for news. I go to people's WhatsApp status because they have updated information. I'm following CNN, BBC. I'm following our local news. Like every time I wake up, I want to be informed. So social media has kind of taken half of my life. Let's talk about that particular aspect of digital space, mental health being from the African context. But first of all, please introduce yourself. I know we have 25 minutes, so we're going to also go through the chats in a few. But yeah, there you are. So over to you, Onesimus.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. My name's Arones
Welcome.
Masumlewa Kalama. I hope you can copy me, Lizzie. You can hear me well.
Good. I can even see you, so I'm excited to see your face.
Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful,
I can hear you.
beautiful. Yes. I'm sorry for joining a little late. I was on transit. So, my name's Arones Masumlewa Kalama, and the technical director at the East African Community Mental Health Network. What a touchy subject when we are talking about mental health and not probably only social media, but the current wave of digital infusion, especially in the global south. Uh, and I think there's quite a lot probably we need to think around when we start talking about mental health and the digital health space. I think former colleagues have actually talked about the cultural perspectives that exist that further serve to contribute to the negative impacts of mental health when people are literally considered either culturally bewitched, all these kind of things. So, what does that mean, especially for the new generation that's growing up today? There's been quite a lot of information or misinformation that has been passed from a cultural perspective that probably initially was intended to either not provide information to the youth because it was thought they are not of age to know, or for one reason or the other, it was intended to maintain such certain cultural values in place. But now, with the blooming of the digital health space, including the use of social media, young people are finding a new escape to getting more information. Now, this is where the catch 22 comes in. Young people, actually, the new generation is wholly immersed in digital platforms to actually source for their information, like Liz was saying. And you will find that the first thing, any issue they have in their mind, they will actually rush to a digital space to actually find solutions. Whether it is through their normal channels in TikTok, where they get a lot of inspiration from their peer colleagues who post information, or whether it is Facebook Live, where they actually interact with other colleagues, or be it through their WhatsApp platforms, where they can actually share information and get information, but also there is the entrance of artificial intelligence, where now our young people are increasingly asking AI to get solutions regarding their own personal well-being. So someone will literally be asking AI. My boyfriend came up this morning and he was asking ABCD, are these red flags? What am I supposed to do? Or I'm experiencing anxiety, and this has not been happening for me, and this happened because I was exposed to one, two, three things. What must I do? So what this happens is our young people are increasingly finding a more exclusive safe space in social media and digital platforms or digital health solutions, because they feel, one, their privacy is guaranteed. They are literally not likely to be exposed the same way if you are to actually ask certain information from your auntie in the community or a health worker in the community. They feel probably their information will be exposed to other people, and then their privacy will not be actually managed. So the influx and the kind of comfort, especially the young generation is finding in use of digital health platforms to actually manage their health well-being is increasing because they find it is more comfortable, it's more private. They are able to ask intricate questions and get responses without necessarily being exposed to the society on what they're actually feeling. I think the challenge that comes then is, what are the limits of the information that these people are actually getting? Because it may not be moderated. There's no one single time that you will be asking a question on AI and then they tell you, I think we have had enough today. You need to go and rest. AI will continue engaging you as long as you ask information. So, what does this then mean? Could this probably be opening a window even to further provide extreme, push our young people to extreme points of mental challenges? Because yes, there is the bit of overuse of social media platforms. Our young people these days will actually spend almost a whole night. They are either on TikTok, they are either on WhatsApp. The interactions go on. And I think if colleagues can remember in this platform, there was a landmark case. I'm not sure was it, either it was in Britain or it was in the US, where a parent literally sued one of the social media platforms that they are actually designed to make children get glued there, so that they can no longer leave that space, because the content that is actually being provided makes someone not leave the space. Then how does this actually provide or safeguard against the well-being of our young children? So there are those literary critical issues that we now start needs to interrogate, while social media, while digital platforms provide are ready platforms for information sharing, providing solutions to some of the issues that we are experiencing. They also they come with the other side, where they are either addictive because they are actually designed to make you stay there longer. And is this even healthy to someone's own personal or the personal health? So these are some of the issues that actually really needs answers from the current wave of digital health space, be it in social media or use of AI. We do acknowledge that yes, they provide a positive element of educating, providing information ready, providing the privacy that one needs. But again, we should not override the perspective that they also have elements that could further detriment the health and well-being of our young people.
True,
Thank you,
true.
Lizzie.
And thank you so much, Erasmus. I mean, better late than not appearing at all. So, we did save the digital space for you. We knew you'd show up at one particular point. But I really do appreciate the fact that you're bringing out something that resonates well with the youth. And when we started off the discussions, we were clear that we do have the largest number of youth population, and this is going to double, it's going to go up. So we need to kind of start talking about digital health spaces and mental health as soon as possible. But what I also appreciate is that aspect of safe space. When we talk about mental health, ideally majority of us want a safe space. We need to ensure that whoever we're talking to about these discussions are not going to blab this out. Now we have 17 minutes, and in the 17 minutes, I'm going to kind of do a round with all the speakers who are here. I will start off with Onesimus. We're just looking at what we're good at as the from the African context, from the global South, something that is really working for us, and something that the global North can learn when it comes to how we genuinely handle mental health. There has to be something that we've been doing that has been working. What is that, as you summarize with your closing remarks? I think you're muted. Onesimus, can you hear? You're muted. You might want to unmute fast. Sorry, we lost him. But let's take it back. Memory. We're talking about what is working well for us and something that can be learned by the global North countries. So we know higher income countries genuinely learn from African communities on how we tackle some issues. What do you think within the space of mental health is something positive you feel like the global North can actually learn from us?
Hear you, Lizzie. Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back. Yes, you were muted. Yes, now I can hear you.
Yes. So something happened and I was hearing you and you couldn't hear me.
Sorry. Digital species. Okay, so maybe summarize in 2 minutes, what you think the global North can learn from the global South, because there are a lot of African solutions that we have, especially within the mental health space, that has been working. And this is something that could be a learning curve or a South to South learning opportunity. What would that be from your end as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think one strong thing that the global South has to offer, especially when it comes into mental health, uh, health generally had not been considered an independent, had not been viewed from an independent lens, but from a societal lens. And when we talk about societal lens, is that people had always a fallback plan. When you have an issue, it is not only your issue, but it's actually a community issue. Now, when we are talking about a digital space, if we can actually inbuilt digital communities of practice where people will come into a digital space not as individuals but join a digital community of practice that they are actually able to feel when I'm in this space, I am within a community where people are also able to share their own personal stories. It actually gives me that measure of belonging and feeling that my problem is not mine alone, and that an algorithm or someone somewhere is simply just pumping in solutions into my head, but I'm actually reading from an experiential point of view where others are also equally sharing their experiences, telling me that, you see, this problem, so and so had a similar I had the same problem, this is how I dealt with it. For me, a similar problem, this is how it was dealt. It brings people closer to reality that the issues they are actually facing are not too personal to them, but they are actual issues that actually other people also face, and they have a way that they have already dealt with them. So if we can inbuild this sense of community and create
Yeah.
digital communities of practice where people will not only interact with either AI responses that are so individually customed, but actually provide a space where people kind of engage in a digital community of practice space. I think that would be a real good thing in using the digital health spaces to support people, and that's a good learning from the global south. Thank you.
I completely agree. Should be protecting. Oh, I like this. Digital regulations should protect mental health and not just that. I really do agree with that. I will take Gideon last. By Gideon, you'll go last. Let's have Memory come in with her insight on that thing that is working that the global north can actually adapt from us. Over to you, Memory. I think you're muted. Yeah, you're muted, Memory. Maybe you can unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you so much. You can hear me now.
Yes.
All right. Yes. So am I answering the first question that you answered? You asked me before my colleague from Tanzania chipped in?
Yes, it's the same question. The one he's answered. What are we doing that is working in the global south that can be, you know, picked up as a learning curve for the global north?
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. I think your line was trippy, but I've gotten your question. So, what has what has been working, especially for us here in Africa, is that we treasure much about our family and our communities. So, a problem is not handled alone. It is handled by the whole community. I think in one of the explanation, I even explained that you find that if I have a problem because of our extended families that we have, so we have a much strength for one another. So one problem is not just for me alone to handle. You find that I have good people that I trust and I would forward that problem to them. As a result, it becomes a lesson burden. So we also have this one. I can also bring it. I've seen it working very well, especially in these local communities where I work with farmers. You find that the little they have, they would share it among themselves to lessen the burden of the other. So even in the you find that when there is drought or there is something that has happened which has strike their mental process, they would rather, speak it out. For instance, if there is a funeral, you'll find that this one will come with a little mealy meal, this one with a little thing. So as they bring together, you find that that one grows big. And we can also get an example of cooperatives. You find that these are a group of people that have got little resources, bring them together for them to solve a big problem. So I've seen that one working very well, and it has helped a lot of people. Even women, they form women groups. So in that socialization, you find that they greet each other, they pour out hearts to each other, problems to each other, and it tends to help them to solve. So we cannot do away with communities where we are living in, because that's where our strength is for us to help each other. We are social beings. We cannot do everything alone. We need people around to help us to help us to solve a lot of problems. I think that's have seen it has worked well for us. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. And I like the fact that we're aligned. The fact that Africans were so strong when it comes to the family setup, the community setup, that has actually worked. And I know there was a question about how do we handle our mental health? There was a question in the chat. And I think if you do not belong to a family, or your family is a little bit far, you do belong to a community. We all do. So please start with that. Belong to a community. And I like the fact that, and I think this goes back to Seize the Light Foundation. We need to have digital community of practices for mental health. So that's a task that has been put out there. Let's go to Pagidi. Pagidi, you've done this. You've gone through this. You've set up safe spaces for discussions. What do you think can be picked up as a lovely South learning experience that can be duplicated or tried in the global north? Over to you as we wrap up. You're muted, sorry. I like digital spaces because you always go, sorry, you're muted. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Over
Yes,
to you.
I
I
mean,
can hear
it's
you
so
now.
interesting. Yes, thank you so much. It's so interesting because, I mean, we've been having a very, very wonderful conversation. And before I even just touch on anything, I would like to appreciate the fact that every single person is engaged, is interested, they are asking questions. And that is one thing that the Global South is getting right, that the Global North can learn from. That is one thing, conversations. I understand the fact or the part where, in terms of money dissipation, Africa needs greater funding from the global north to be able to carry out all of the projects and engagement they are going to. And we would not expect the global north to, let's say, be African. I mean, that is not really the lesson. There is this dynamism, uniqueness of each and every societal facet that we have. So rather than just telling the North to be African, I mean, we'll look at telling them to rebuild that human connection. That human connection. A whole lot of people are still depressed. A whole lot of people are still going through anxiety. Even mental health advocates themselves are in dire need of mental health care. We need a lot of investments. We really need a lot of engagement. So yes, technology matters. Yes, technology matters. I should say that during my time when I was going through my suicide ideation crisis, I was writing. There is this particular thing that we always talk about, that when you write something, write it in the paper, then burn it and dispose it. But I would seize this few seconds to say writing is very, very essential, irrespective of how bad, terrible, insane, mundane your thought process is. Write it out. If you have the opportunity, publish it. You can directly make money for yourself from that. I mean, jokingly, some people are not really depressed, but it's because they don't have financial capacity. And that is why they are depressed. So we can emancipate ourselves through financial empowerment, through your story, through your pain, through your experience. You can generate income for yourself. Another thing is medicine. We cannot take away the role or place medicine has to play in mental health sanity. Take care of yourself. Drink water, rest when necessary, use the right appropriate medication. Self-medication may be good, but in the long term it has its own adverse effect. The reason is very simple. As you grow, you may not really understand the dynamism of your body. So a particular drug that you think is working right now might have advanced or your body might have become advanced to accommodate that drug. So rather than going through self-medication, it's just appropriate that you seek medical help where possible. Another thing is therapy. Yes, I love the fact that Onesmus and Memory especially, both myself, we've emphasized on what role community, family has to play. Because as a matter of fact, as no matter how, and this might be controversial, but it's a fact, no matter how we want to emphasize therapy, people will first seek respective therapy from the next door person than seeking a professional help. Now, AI is very much advanced, like Onesmus has said, but again, therapy is still therapy. So if it means listening to music, if it means watching movies, if it means surfing the internet, yes, I understand that there might be an abuse of internet, but we cannot talk about an abuse without first understanding the use. There are greater use of the internet than the abuse of it. So while certain people may want to focus on the abuse, we can just look more on the usage of it. So above all, get the right set of friends. It is not compulsory. And again, I just need to say that these opportunities that we have to talk are just the appropriate and right time to say some certain things. It is not compulsory you have a friend, but it is very, very necessary you have the right friend, because there are different sets of friends. The right community, having an understanding of who you are as a person would help you locate the right set of people, the right set of community, and engage in storytelling. That is one thing the Global South is getting right, that the Global North can learn from, because we write, we talk. I, as a person, I said it that when I was going through my series, I had to write a book. I did not, no one told me, but that was my own survival instinct. For several other people, it could be something else. It could be music. You write stories, you write poems, you even write a movie of your life, of your engagement, and you publish these things. These things go a long way in taking us into our shared responsibility. So I would wrap up by saying that when I founded Pagide Expressions, I wasn't trying to replace psychologists or therapists or psychiatrists, as the case may be. I was just trying to help. I was just trying to restore something that many people have lost, which is that safe space, that opportunity to express the real you that no other person may be able to understand. And it's okay to say, I'm not okay. But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that we are not carrying this burden alone. We share, we care, and we give support to those people who need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're given an hour and a half. We're on time. We have 40 seconds. And in this 40 seconds, I'm going to appreciate everyone who joined in virtually for this discussion. Since the Life Foundation will still be holding more discussions around mental health and in health in general. So if you're looking at partnering, sponsoring, if you're looking at speaking, or even recommending a topic that you feel it's a burning topic that we need to talk about, please reach out to the email address that has been shared, which is hello@seizthelifefoundation.com, and the team will reach out to you. In other words, we have 8 seconds. Thank you so much. And what I'd like to tell you, which is a positive thing, everybody has gone through a mental health issue, one way or another. That makes you a mental health advocate. You don't have to go to school for this. The fact that you've gone through something, you've figured out how to handle it, becomes you become automatically a mental health advocate. So on behalf of other mental health advocates, thank you so much, and look forward to having more discussions around this. Thank you so much, speakers. Have a great afternoon, a great weekend ahead, and look forward to more thought-provoking discussions. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.